Well, hi everybody. Good afternoon. So for my project, I made contact with First Evangelical Free Church, specifically Mr. Nathan Greenwald, who is the IT professional at that location. He is in charge of the database program that the church uses. So I basically chose databases as my in-depth look. And databases are a collection of data information that can be accessed by different apps or can be accessed through the database itself. A similar thing to just a database would be like an Excel thing. That's probably the closest thing that like a Microsoft Office app that would have to a database. But the specific one they use at the church is designed for churches. And they call these programs like church management programs. They don't specifically say database, but they mean database when they say that. And First Evangelical Free Church was actually transitioning from using one database to using a different kind of database when I reached out to them, which was kind of cool. They were going from ACS to Planning Center. And the main reason that they were making that decision was based on the needs of the church. So as the church was growing, they were becoming more and more administrative needs as far as with the database goes, and monitoring the members of the church and the way things were functioning within the church, like donations, etc. Because apparently, while ACS was very good at maintaining that information and being able to access it and pull it up, it wasn't really accessible by outside individuals, only really accessible by administrative personnel who had training on the program. And so this was causing like backlog as the church grew. So they're switching to another program, or have switched to another program called Planning Center. And Planning Center is a database program with apps that are like around it that access the database. So the database itself is like a list of members, and it's a list of visitors, or like future members. So you have everyone who's officially a member and their children within the church in one section of the database, and then everyone who's hopeful member, like a future member, the church would like them to become members, or are visitors, and they broke that up into like three sections. So like people who come a lot and we think that they're on the way to being members, official members of the church, and then like over here we have visitors, people who are just brand new. And that database specifically that allows them to give like themselves reminders and send emails to people, like automatically populated emails. So if somebody uses one of the docking stations that are located throughout the church to sign up as a visitor, it will populate their information into the visitor section, and then it will send email reminders to different members of the church telling them what they need, like, hey, this person's a visitor. So the pastor gets a message like, hey, reach out to this person, they're a visitor for the church, let them know that you're glad they came. And then the welcome committee gets a message that says, hey, this person's a visitor, they sign up as a visitor, here's their address, here's where we want you to send their welcome gift. So that all kind of gets done automatically, and then when that's finished, the individual who's done it can check it inside the database, like, yes, I did this task, and then that will move, once all tasks are complete, that will automatically populate the person's individual data from the visitor list to the hopeful members list. And that's the database itself. It keeps a track of all the members. It keeps a track of their children, and etc. Once that information is put into the database by either a church administrator or the person themselves. But there are apps that are surrounding that database that are used to make church life more streamlined. One of the biggest ones that was talked about was Check-ins. So Check-ins is an app for what children are involved, like the nursery and junior high and high school area. So parents can, and I as a new parent, I knew this was a thing at the church, but I hadn't actually used it because COVID, and my baby came during COVID, so I never really had the chance to try it. But it was very exciting when I found out what it can do for me. So I'm able to check in my daughter, Evelyn, on my phone on the way to church, so that the nursery knows she's coming. The nursery gets notified that she's coming. They can appropriately staff based on how many children they have being planned to check in. If they need extra people, they can reach out. Excuse me. They can reach out and ask for more people to come into the nursery. I mean, babies are difficult, so I thought that was kind of cool. And then when I arrive, there's a barcode on my phone that's populated because I checked Evelyn in. And when I scan that at the docking station that's located at the nursery, it will print out a name tag for my daughter. And then it also prints out a barcode tag for me that they will scan to make sure that Evelyn's mine when I come and get her. So like I'm the only one who can get my daughter because I have the barcode. And I was like, and I thought that was really cool. I mean, because it's always a little nervous as a parent leaving your children with people, especially a new parent. I heard that as you get more and more children, you get less and less worried about stuff like that. But it was comforting to me to know that that was kind of how it would do. And all that information about who I am and who Evelyn is and who Ruth is all pulled from, Ruth is my wife, is all pulled from the main database itself where all that information is stored. So it's really kind of a cool way to access that information and pull it out. Another one that... Another function that Planning Center has is they use a donations app, and what that does is it will register whether or not the donation is from a member. So I log into my phone and I'm making a donation. I type in the numbers for my donation. I fill out all the credit card information that I would need to make that donation online, and then I can submit that donation. And as I submit it, the app automatically checks the database to see if I'm a member. And if I am a member, it adds that funds that I gave to my yearly donations, data, so that I can get my tax information at the end of the year. This allows them to just instantly send out everyone's yearly donations without having to do much of anything. It all is just managed by the database itself and the app that functions off of that. So now the database is storing my donation as well. And if the other side of that, which is really cool that we talked about, is that if I'm not a member, obviously it can't store the information under my membership, but what it does is it takes the credit card information and it automatically populates me into that list in the database of hopeful future members. And then I can be moved from one list to the other just by going to the database and dragging myself over, or completing the membership class automatically moves me in, which is kind of cool. So if I complete the membership class that it's offered at the church, I'll automatically be populated from the hopeful member list to the member list database. And the really cool thing about this for me is with my eye on future ministry work, especially involved in a church, it's interesting to note that this is all really seemingly high tech, and my church is not that big. I want to say we're, I don't know, maybe 500 people in total, and that's with the different services. So I know there are lots of churches out there with thousands of people. And so knowing that that's kind of the direction the church is going tells me that this is something that I have to be aware of and constantly updating myself on as I go forward in seminary and as I go forward into the ministry itself, so that I'm better prepared for being there for my church as it grows, which is kind of cool. So I'm grateful for the opportunity and the project itself. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.